Shalom, brother and sister truth seekers. We want to try and do an update. This is, again, not final. My purpose is to try and gather the Sundial data and get it out there for truth seekers to think about and lend an experienced opinion about all the data that's coming in. But what I'm saying is not absolute. Like, if you live in an area that's really close and you collected data and you feel differently, by all means, I encourage everyone to ask for other opinions, and at the end of the day, uh, you know, go with your own final conclusion that the creator has given you the most peace about. So, yeah, I'm just getting the data together and I'm putting an opinion together. Go ask for other opinions. Remnant of Light, Manna from Heaven, Covenant Calendar Club, Nick Vanderland. Qumran, Dead Sea Scroll groups have a lot of people doing the sundial stuff. By all means, communicate, have loving iron, sharpening iron. I'm just trying to present the data and lend an opinion, some iron sharpening iron. So this is the Facebook group, and as we're getting down to the wire here, I just want to encourage people to get plugged in here, because I don't always have time to do or really have enough information to make it worth doing a YouTube video, but this Facebook group is catching important updates. Like, we've had some data coming in from Dubai, and we've had some updated data coming in from Ohio lately that kind of helps to clarify things. So I recommend you join this group to stay plugged into updates like that. But I wanted to give an update on this, even though I'm still waiting for some pictures back, some clarifications on some data sets. I think things are starting to, these dates are wrong. Shouldn't be 2022. But I think things are starting to make sense. And I'm starting to see a potential pattern. But so if you remember last time we looked at this, just a brief overcap, this is of the solid witnesses. So this is my comprehensive list of everyone who I've seen ever collect data. The yellow cells are people who actually collected data this time around. And then these column F is the date they thought they were seeing the straight line, and I flag it in solid green highlight if it was 10 hours of data. If it was 9 to 10 hours of data, it's green text. And then if it's orange, I think that was questionable. Red means it was an outlier. So probably the biggest thing in this update is I don't think there are any more slam dunk witnesses for the outliers. Not to say, again, like, if you collected data and you feel strongly that it was on one of these outlier days and you're convicted and you have peace about that, I encourage you to stick with what the creator has given you peace about. But I'm just looking at the data, and it was like 2 or 3 in the morning by the time I was looking at a lot of the data when I put out my last video, and data was just coming in around the clock, and it was hard to keep up with. And some of it I didn't even know what to think of late at night. Like some of the wall mounts, for example, I couldn't even tell what side was. It was different. We haven't seen too many of those this year, so I couldn't tell what was post Equinox and what was pre Equinox. I had to think about those curves a little bit when it transitions to a wall mount instead of a horizontal board. But so I have had time to think through stuff like that, and I have got some updated pictures and conversations with people. And so it seems like, from my discussions, it doesn't seem like there are any more solid slam dunk, like this is absolutely so. There are 11 questionable data sets, and even though these are questionable, the majority of these are still pointing towards an agreement with these green cells, the dates in these green cells. As you see, I'll go through here. This one's orange, but I'm still saying the 19th. This one's orange, but I'm saying the 20th, and it's in red. This one, 19th, 19th, 19th. I think here's one for the 20th. Here's one for the 20th. And here's one for the 21st. And we'll talk about them at the end. But I mean, so there really aren't most of these unreliable, or not unreliable, questionable data sets probably could go along with the green, but I haven't seen updated pictures that I'm looking for, so I can't say absolutely. So yeah, just last note before diving in, I guess we're going to focus in on the updates and going through these questionable ones, talk about what changed recently. But this is for the straight dial sundial, this straight line sundial table test, an entire day of data. I do have all data collected that I was able to find into these folders. So there's a shared link in the description below this video for a shared Dropbox folder. It'll take you up to this directory, and you can drill down by the year, and then by the day, the month. These are Gregorian months, and then by the day. So the days of interest that we're going to be looking at are like the 19th, 20th, and the 21st. And I did throw any kind of sundial data I got into these folders, whether it was the armillary, the Qumran petri dish, the flat table method. But for the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to be focusing on the straight line table test. That's the one I have the most confidence in. I have my concerns about the other sundials, like the petri dish is cool, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's accurate enough to be able to pinpoint the day. Maybe that was used to pinpoint the month. I'm not sure. The armillary, I've just got too many concerns. There are just too many ways the calibration of that thing could have human error. There are people who use them, and I mean, it's available. If that means something to you, then it's that data is in here for you to consider. But I'm going to try and narrow things down by focusing on the straight line test, because I think that's a very unique phenomenon, and it's something that reduces the potential for human error. So I'm gonna try and get through these quickly. And so this was a questionable data set coming from Man from Heaven. Okay, so Florida. And again, this might take me a minute to get in the rhythm, but this was very likely the 19th. 10 hours of data. I was just requesting better pictures because I couldn't see very well how the pins were interfacing with the actual line. So what is this? The 19th from Florida. Let's take a quick peek. 19th from Florida. Here we go. Manna from Heaven. Okay, 10 hours of data. They thought it looked straight, waiting for close-up pictures. Okay, so here they go. This is not bad, but I can't quite see the points. Some of like these midday points, and then they've got this marker here. Everyone needs to make a note that this is kind of cool, but I see too many data sets where people are pulling this string and it's getting caught on these midday points or things like this. We want to make sure we only have one pin at the beginning of the day and one pin at the end of the day, because unfortunately, um, we want to see a straight line from the first to the last point of the day, and we want to make absolutely certain that it's not getting hung up on any of these midday points. So it's best just to somehow come up with another way to mark your board, but don't use pins, or when you pull your string, make sure to pull all these pins out. We'll see a data set like that where it looks like it was definitely getting hung up on the midday point, but we want a straight line from the first point to the last point of the day. But anyway, so I can't really tell. The heads of these pins are kind of big, so I can't see exactly where the point is for the midday marks. Maybe that's what this is saying, but we really need to be able to see a straight line from the first point to the last point. We need to see a close-up of those, how the string is interfacing with those, because sometimes if it's a fat pin or nail, like that can push the line one way or another substantially. So ideally, this string is fine, sewing string is good, and as fine a pin as you can put in here to keep. You want this line to be centered on your first mark of the day and to be centered on your last mark of the day. And then you pull, and then you look, and you see where these midday marks are compared. So they thought this was straight, looks pretty straight, but I can't say for sure. So that's an example of what's going on for the 19th. Here is a data set that we talked about in the last video, 9 hours of data, but it's still showing a pre-equinox curve all the way on the 20th. So no one else that I'm aware of is seeing that. So it unfortunately it tells me there's probably something going on with that data, and I think this might have been a first time marker. So I just leave that as questionable. But this was one of like the 3 or the 4 where it could have potentially been not in agreement with like the majority of these witnesses. But it seems like there might be some weird things going on. So I don't think we can rely on that one too heavily, unfortunately. This was a good data set. It just seemed like some points were above the line and below the line on the 19th and the 20th, and the straight line could have been either day. Prophecy Vine had an excellent video to go with his data set, and it was showing the 19th. With a data set as large as he was using, I really think we would have seen a substantial curve if it wasn't straight. He didn't quite have his line centered on the first point of the day, but it was touching. He was using big marks. It's very close, but I didn't want to say absolutely. I didn't flag this as green, but it's very likely was the 19th. Okay, this was one of the tricky ones where the string looked like it was getting hung up at midday. So I pulled a straight line on their data set. It looks like my straight line. And the other thing is it was hard for me to even pull a straight line because of the picture they took. I can't even see if my line is going through the exact pin. I like they've got big balls, and I've like tried to center my line on the ball, but who knows if the tip of the pin actually went in a little higher or lower. But when I pulled my line, it definitely looked like the midday marks were above the line. And I think the one at 550 was also above the line. And this was a wall mount sundial, and this was one of the ones that came in at the last minute on the other night when I was up at like 2 or 3 in the morning doing this. And when it came in, I just wasn't sure what to think of it. Like with the wall mount, I wasn't sure if the points should be above or below the line, what that meant, pre or post equinox. So I think I actually had this one flagged as the 20th, but this is, after I pulled a line and thought about it a little more, it does look like these points may be in the post equinox position. So I put it as the 19th, but it is questionable. So let's look at this data real quick. This was from Texas on the, oh, silly me. I didn't write what day it was. I need to do that. I'm going to take a guess and say on the 19th. And if I have to change that, we'll change that. Let's try and find it. The 19th, Central. Texas. Nope. Okay, it was the 20th. 20th. Okay. So 20th, Texas, Central Texas. Oh boy. Okay. So I took a couple extra snapshots this morning of that extra line I dropped. We'll just look through these real quick. Okay. So this was the overall picture, and you can tell it kind of has a slight bow to it, and I just wasn't sure what's going on. It kind of looked like it was getting hung up on this midpoint of the day. they send a close-up and I can see it is touching that one. These ones are off. And here's another close-up. But then I pulled this line again from, and you can tell, even though there's this big ball and I can't really tell where the middle is, if you look at this string, you can see where the string is coming in and it kind of wraps around the shaft. So I think that's pretty close. Oh, I guess this one's actually higher. So I can't tell what's going on here, but I mean it looked like this one's way above the line in any situation, and it looked like this midday point was above the line. That though, I don't know what to say about that. Oh, that actually does look too low. I think I had my spreadsheet open for that. Okay, well, so this is the issue we're running into. So, okay, that looked a little different when I looked at it this morning. I wonder if I missed a point. But in any situation, this one looks quite high. I didn't know what to make of these being a wall mount 2 or 3 in the morning, but now I think I understand. Like, it's kind of the same thing that we see with the flat boards. Like the point, if it is below the line, in this orient, because I can't say north and south. Like I can say east and west, but I can't say north and south because this is vertical. But in this particular setup with the gnomon higher, I think it would have to be. If the point is south of the line, that's a pre-equinox position. If it's north of the line, it's post-equinox. So this one's way north or way up with the line. It looked like this one was up with the line, but I really can't say without knowing for sure where exactly that pin is, the pin head. So we can leave this one. Kind of did a jump on me, so we can say, I mean, we can call this 120th if we want, but I think it's orange because I can't say conclusively. So I'll say 20th just because, and we'll make that one red. We got a few like that, but I'm still gonna say this is questionable, and I need better pictures to say for sure what's going on there. Okay, Missouri. Oh, you know what? One thing I didn't have flagged here that I want to look at is what happened with the Ohio data set. Because this is one, so I guess we're focused on the orange and the red, but this is one that was an outlier in the video I did, but they just submitted updated data and now it's a strong witness for the 19th. And so yeah, if you were on the Facebook group, you would have seen those pictures come through. But this is good to look at because it gives you an idea of how close the string is to the line. Is that Eastern Ohio? So we're gonna try and find the midday marks. Midday mark on the 18th, and I'm gonna hold this one up if I can. And we're gonna go to a different day and we're gonna compare. Oops. Trying to do this under 30 minutes, but okay. So we can see the 18th is way over here. And what they were noticing was at midday, the points seemed to pile up on each other. So I think they had the 18th, the 19th, and the 21st first. But by solar noon, the points for the 19th and the 21st looked like they were right on top of each other. It's only the early morning and the late evening points that hook more that they were able to like pull their string and see a major difference. So this string is running from the first and last points of the day on the 18th, and that's where the midday point is with respect to the line on the 18th. So now we're going to do the same thing for the 19th. They pulled the midday point. Final midday must be this one. So we're going to look at this one. Help, author, help. Okay, so now you can see they've got this, and all these pictures are here, and they even took a good video flyover of the data. So this line is going between the first point of the day and the last point of the day, and so this is their 19th point, and it's really close. It's touching, and compared to what you see here, like there's a big gap here from one day to the next. So now we're going to look one more time at what they got from the 21st. Unfortunately, they missed the 20th. But I think there's still good things to see here. I pinned this to the video. Okay, substantially north of the line. Is that? Oh no, that's a Word document note that I made to myself. The actual pictures are these. I don't know which one's midday, so let's take a look. That is not midday. That's the first mark. These are midday. All right, so check it out. All right, so look at all these. This one on the left is the 18th. One in the middle is the 19th. It's touching. And then the one on the 21st, look how big this gap is. So here's the line they pulled from the first point of the day to the last point of the day. And the mark for the 21st, they said they couldn't tell a difference between the 19th and the 20th. These are still, they're not big fat marks. They're pretty fine marks. This is what everyone should be trying to do, is a very fine mark. We want to see the very tip of the shadow. Otherwise, I mean, I've seen some people using like nail heads and screw heads, and that can potentially offset the data half the diameter of that nail head or screw head, which is a big deal when we're looking at little small data sets or movements like this. But anyway, so the key takeaway here is, if you look here, one day away from the equinox in theory, you see these 2 points, you've got about that amount of distance from this point to the line. So, okay, this distance here is about the distance between these 2 points for comparison. On the 19th, it's very close, but then on the 21st, it's a much bigger gap. So in theory, remember, these are the distance between this point and this point is about what it was on the 18th. So you can imagine probably that this point and this point on the 20th probably sat like right about here. Or they somewhere in here, like they were probably still off the line. Like this is much substantially off the line on the 21st. So I would say, even though they didn't get data on the 20th, this is a very good indication they got it on the 19th, and this is pretty much touching. And so we're missing a day, but this gap is quite large, so it's likely that the points would have been in between on the 20th. So that's an important witness to consider that flipped since the last video that I did. We're going to try and cover the other ones real quick. Was that? Okay. This is probably one of the tougher witnesses. I'm still waiting for updated pictures, but this was coming out of Montana. They did an excellent job last year, and it's just unfortunately, it's hard to say. They used a smaller sundial, and from these notes I made here, it looked like the smaller sundial was almost saying it could have been a straight line on the 19th. So just not sure about this. Still waiting for updated photos on this one. This was Remnant of Light, and we looked at their data in the last video. Again, they've been doing it for a long time, but what I think we were seeing was we were seeing two different curves back to back. And I think the data on the 20th was less, like they didn't start collecting, I think, until 9:20 in the morning. So, I mean, if they had gotten those early morning points, we might have seen even a more substantial curve on the 20th. But we were still seeing two back-to-back curves. And so I don't know if that's human error, or if they're so good at doing this, maybe they are discerning something that we are just not used to seeing with our small sundial tables. Modern science claims that the sun crosses over the celestial equator in a moment of time. I used to think that the sun rode the celestial equator for like all day, but and that's why we got the straight line. But I mean, if it does cross over in a moment of time, then in theory, possibly there is no such thing as a straight line. Maybe we only perceive it as straight because the small tables we've been using, but in actuality, if you get really good at this or using a taller gnomon, you might actually be able to discern that they're just two back-to-back flipped curves. I'm not sure. But this data set that came from Tim that is in the same time zone, he used a 2-foot tall gnomon in a driveway, 80-foot long, 5-foot long data set. He was seeing I believe he was seeing a post-equinox curve. Um, yeah, he was really close. Yeah, he was seeing a slight post equinox curve on the 19th. So I don't know if maybe that would have actually been straight. It's just he's seeing a level of detail with that taller setup that we're not used to seeing. But it's very similar to Remnant of Light. Like, they're very good at what they do, and they use a taller gnomon on a big table, and maybe they're just seeing a level of detail we're not used to seeing. But this one I think was definitely solid. This one is questionable. So by all means, talk to them. This is one opinion, one iron sharpening iron. We'll talk to other people. Um, these two just pretty much cancel out. They were collected by Marty and his mother, and they just, I guess, one area they were seeing one thing and one another, and I think they said that it was blurry, ghosting, shadows. So there could have been some human error there, but they kind of cancel out the one with the other. This one in Australia was kind of strange, but I think what I've heard is potentially the his paper got wet by the morning dew, and we want to be careful that that doesn't happen if you're using paper, because that can cause your paper to get wavy, but it can also make your paper shrink. And I've got some early Sundial videos about that. I like put some paper down on a board, and then I traced a pencil around the four corners of it, because I thought I needed to know where the four corners was so I could take it up and put it down day after day and put it in the same spot. But what I noticed was when it got wet in the morning and dried off, like, the paper shrunk horizontally. It was like sliding and shrinking, and so that can pull the data around potentially. So I think there's reason to question this, but also I was taking a closer look at this, and it looked like his second to last point of the day was starting to go post equinox curve, which is what would be in agreement with the other witnesses around him. And maybe only that last point of the day that he tried to grab, because he grabbed 11 hours of data. Sometimes almost too much is we don't want to compromise the accuracy of our data points for the sake of getting more data. Like, 9 to 10 hours is fine. Sometimes if we go for 11 hours, those really early and really late evening points can be ghosting and really hard to see. So we want to make sure if we grab a point that we're sure about the point. But I just wanted to show you this picture, just that I noticed. One of his points did look like it might have been starting to come off the line, and so potentially that's in agreement with the many witnesses around him. So it's a tough call, but you can see this one is off the line. So maybe if he pulled that down to the line, then these midday ones would be above the line, and maybe be in agreement with what he was seeing. But I mean, like, there was good witnesses coming in from Hawaii as well. Where are they? Here. Back to back on the 19th and the 20th. So I mean, they're pretty close in time zone. There is that man-made international date line between them that causes the date to shift, but these two are in agreement, and then I think Tara was also in agreement. The last data set I want to talk about is this Dubai data set, and you got to sit on the edge of your seat for this one. It's excellent data, but unfortunately I cannot tell where the midday points were. But it was 10 hours of data, and it could potentially be very reliable. We'll take a quick look at that. but I am waiting for better photos to come in. But it definitely has the potential to clarify what is going on uh, over in that part of the world there. Oh, where are you, Dubai? What did they have? They had data on the 20th. Okay, they said they try and get, yes. Okay, sorry about that. The free software cut me off at 30 minutes. So, but we need to talk about Dubai. So that's one of the data sets that came in on the Facebook group. Please go get plugged into the Facebook group so you don't miss important updates like this. But it was hard to say what was going on in this neck of the world. It's potentially where the Creators International Dateline might be, somewhere around there. But this could clarify because it's solid. Like they had 10 hours of data, they had 9 to 10 hours of data on, I think, the 19th and the 20th and the 21st, maybe. Um, but unfortunately, I just cannot tell what's going on with those midday marks. So I've requested that they send updated photos. But to show you real quick what we're looking at, let's take a look. So this is a spread of their entire data set, and they labeled these. This is the 19th. This is their first mark of the day. So this is I'm glad they're pointing to it, but like this, for example, unfortunately, I can't tell what they're pointing at. Is this supposed to be like the pin that they're pointing at? Like it kind of looks like they're pointing at this, which would be the letter. If they're pointing at the pin, like this would be pretty much like right on the pin, potentially. Uh, but I have asked them to make sure they pull that pin. Like we want to make sure the line that we pull, I guess that was okay. The lines that we pull from the first point of the day to the last point of the day, we want to make absolutely certain that it is straight and it's not getting hung up on anything. So we don't want to have any pins really anywhere between those first and last points of the day. So I've asked them to pull that out and to point specifically to where that is. Like I don't know what we're talking about. I think that looks like a B5. Maybe that looks like an A6, and maybe the actual mark is in there somewhere. I can't tell. There's a mark for I think C7. There's something for C6. Maybe that's a mark. We'll see that later. But I need for them to take a close-up picture and let me see where that point is with respect to line. But potentially, that's like right on the line on the 19th, which is interesting. Very interesting. So let's see. The 20th, I think, might be a little more clear. So that's the 20th. First point. So now they're saying somewhere in here. I don't know if that thing, I don't know what I'm looking at. Maybe if they're pointing at that, did they put a pin in a new location? Like they got 3 different holes here, maybe? I don't know what's going on. So I need them to clarify. Maybe I didn't notice that before, but maybe that's what they're doing. But a pin is not a good way to do this because I cannot tell if this line is running straight between the first and the last points of the day. Like we need to make sure this pin is centered. The string is centered. You know, sometimes the pin, if it's fat diameter, can push that string off of the center point. But you want to make sure that string is centered on the first mark of the day and the last mark of the day, or it's extremely fine like this, so it's very close, but then cannot get hung up on anything in the middle. So good idea to just pull all pins between the first and last points of the day so that line can run perfectly straight, and then we can look to see where are these points comparing. And I think they had data from the 21st. And on the 21st, they're pointing here. I don't know what's going on. And I don't. I sure hope they didn't just pull one string and leave it in there. Like this string needs to be pulled fresh for each day. So I've also asked them to send a close-up picture of the first point of the day because I need to make sure that this this string is being pulled from the first point of each day. Like if this is the 21st, this string needs to be pulled from the first point of the day of the 21st. We don't want to leave these pins in here from any other day and pull the string. Like we need to make sure we're putting this pin into the first mark of the day for this date, and then likewise for the last point of the day. And I'm not entirely sure if they're doing that, but I've asked for close-up pictures to verify. Because I mean, as we saw with other data sets, like these midday points will not move much. Like they may look like they're right on top of each other, but it's the morning and the evening, the early morning and late evening, that where the shadow hooks the most. So I mean, it's essential to make sure when we pull our string each day, we're sticking a pin in the correct starting point for this date and the correct ending point for this date, and then we see where things compare. So, um, unfortunately, I can't. I mean, I wanted to give this update. It sounds like they're not going to be able to give me an update until tomorrow, and I'm kind of concerned as I look at this. Maybe there's more than I mentioned to them. Maybe I'll send a quick message to make sure that they're sticking their pins in those first marks of the day for the respective dates. But I'm hoping they're going to get me updated information. It's probably going to get thrown to the Facebook group first, but maybe be able to come out with a video tomorrow night if they get me everything we need. They said they're in a group and like different spread out or something, and I guess they couldn't get together to talk about this until tomorrow. So that's the update. And I just wanted to say again, it almost sounds like there are maybe different thought processes going on for what the Creators International Dateline is doing. And I'm not going to say anything specifically about what I've heard people thinking about. I'll let them come out and share their own thoughts on things. But when I make these maps and when I'm talking about the Creators International Dateline, like these, the man-made international dateline out here is where he says time begins. But what we're trying to identify is where the solar cycle starts and ends. Really, I guess, just to be to make sure I'm saying this right, um, because you can think people think different ways, like what that means, like the straight line. Some people think that day is the beginning or end of the year, or the day following is beginning or the end of the year. Not necessarily getting into that, like uh, that's another topic for a different video. But as far as the sundial data collection goes and understanding apples to apples of what we're talking about, when I'm talking about the Creators International Dateline, I am talking about where that straight line was sighted. So, where it was sighted first. So, let me see if I can pull open that map, the updated map. So, this year, um, and maybe this Dubai information changes things. I don't know. Hopefully they get us updated data, but I think this is going to be a very interesting place to watch this year. But what we're trying to do, ignoring the Dubai information for a minute and just going off of what I saw from everyone else's data, like I'm trying to pinpoint what zone was the straight line seen first. So not necessarily what's the first day of the year or the last day of the year, but where was the straight line seen first? And I mean, that's directly associated with like the duration of the solar cycle. So like the sun is traveling east to west, east to west, east to west, and it bounces between the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn different times of year to give us the seasons. So here in North America, when the sun is way down here, traveling low on the horizon, what appears to be low on the horizon from our perspective, we have winter. and these guys down here are having summer. And then like the sun will slowly move up to the middle line of heaven near Orion's belt, and that's the March and the September equinoxes happen when the sun is on this equator, and then the sun will climb, slightly in the sky, and when it's up here, we're getting summer and they're getting winter. So I mean, the solar cycle is bouncing between these two extreme lines, and when it completes itself is when it runs that straight course, or almost perfectly straight course, on the equinoxes. And so that's what I'm trying to pinpoint. And really, I mean, it's it all happens within the approximately the same 24-hour period of time. The only reason why we see two dates is because of this funky man-made international date line. Um, like that's the reason sometimes you see two Gregorian dates. It's only because of this crazy man-made international date line. Um, so yeah, but by all means, like I said from the beginning, if you collected your own personal data, or someone else has another opinion about this data, or you have your own opinion about the data, you feel strongly, you have peace about a different date, by all means, you should listen to your creator and the piece he's given you about that. I mean, that's between you and him, what he's speaking in your mind and your heart. But I mean, as far as this international dateline goes, yeah, that's what when I speak of the international dateline, I am trying to identify the zone that the straight line was sighted first in the world. That's what I'm doing. So I mean, this is, and I don't know if, like I said, it's not necessarily answering the question of when the year begins, because some people think it begins on the day of or the day after. We're not getting into that. What I'm trying to just identify is the zone where the straight line was sighted first, and then people can do what they need to do with that data from there. Um, yeah, I mean, because lately it seems like people are saying international dateline, and maybe they're trying to tie it into the equinox moment that modern science is saying, and blah blah blah. And it almost seems like there's, maybe we're not talking about the same thing. I don't know, but what I am talking about is the area where the first people. What I'm trying to identify, and what I've been calling, maybe I shouldn't even call it the Creators International Dateline, but it is the zone where the solar cycle hit that straight line, which for some people may be the beginning or the end of the year, but that's what I'm identifying. Where was the straight line seen first? And so, I mean, just as a final food for thought, like again, Stellarium and modern software and NASA and Naval Observatory and all this stuff put out data, calendar, companies take it and publish the first day of spring, and software like Stellarium use it. Timeanddate.com pull their data from like the Naval Observatory and stuff. But the weird thing is, anything's possible. We've been tracking this for years now, and maybe everything we've done to date is completely wrong. But it seems like there was potential that the location that this software, Stellarium, and I think timeanddate.com is showing the equinox moment to occur. Like in theory, what they're saying is this is the moment where the sun crosses. So this straight line that's running here is the celestial equator, the center line of heaven. So the sun is like traveling these other curved. You see these curved lines, and they're flipped one way or another, just like what we see with our sundial boards. And so the software and timeanddate.com, I think, for the equinox moment, they're telling you that moment when the sun is bisected by the celestial equator. That's what this location is. They're saying this is where the sun was bisected, right here. And then in 2025, this is where the sun was bisected, right here. Notice how close it is to Dubai. Um, so, and I don't know, maybe that's totally wrong. But the thing is, if the sun is truly bisected at this location, then I would expect someone to see the straight line very near where they're saying this equinox moment occurs, very near where they are saying the sun was bisected by the celestial equator. Like it shouldn't be far away from there. Like people should be seeing when the sun is split by that middle line of heaven. Like that's when people, approximately when people should start seeing the straight line. I don't know if that means like, okay, so they're saying the sun was bisected here. So possibly if it was bisected here and a person is looking for the straight line here, does that mean the sun had to rise a little bit to the east of them in order for them to see the straight line? Like, is that what we discern? Like this discussion of does the sun actually ride the celestial equator, or does it truly cross in a moment of time, and we just really can't discern the fact that maybe there is no such thing as a perfectly straight line. Maybe it's like two back-to-back curves, but you just can't discern it with a small sundial table. But so the question is, does the sun ride it? Because if the sun rode the celestial equator, then in theory, once it hit the celestial equator here, then only you would only see the straight line to the east of this location, and only a person living out here to what I say west. I'm sorry, to the west of this location. Only a person living out here would start to see the sunrise here. The sun would be rising here on the celestial equator. So for them, they'd start to see the straight line maybe over here. But the other possibility is that's if the sun rides the celestial equator. But if the way it works is when the sun gets close enough to the celestial equator, then we start to see what appears to be a straight line. Then it would make sense that the sun needs to be a little bit east of this location in order for the person here to see the straight line. Like, because the straight line is a full day of data collection. So, I mean, if the sun was only bisected by the celestial equator here, then this person right here, in theory, wouldn't see the straight line, because they might see a straight line for this half of the day, but then it would have still been curving on this half of the day, so it would cause their data set to look curved. And it wouldn't be until the sun came all the way around to the end of the day that they saw it. Or that was if the sun rides the celestial equator. If the sun crosses in a moment of time, then potentially it is a little to the east when people start to see the straight line. That's just some food for thought. Anything's possible. All of this can be entirely wrong. I'm not sure, but I think there is potential it's lining up. I think there is something wrong with the dates, and that caught me off guard. If you watched a couple videos before this, like last year, I didn't notice it. Like we were so close, Australia and the man-made international date line, like it didn't even occur to me what Stellarium was showing us here for a date. I was only paying attention to the location of the sun. But it was only like a few weeks ago then I looked and it was like, oh, they are showing a different date. They kind of look like they potentially have the right location showed on the map, but the date is one day off. So that's what I'm noticing. That's food for thought. Loving iron, sharpening iron. Please let me know your thoughts. I think it'll be very interesting to see what Dubai comes up with this year. Hopefully they get us the pictures we need, but this was 10 hours of data. It has the potential to be a very solid witness. And they've been doing this for a couple of years now, and like they just did an excellent job. They're taking all the right pictures and stuff, but we're all learning, and hopefully they can come through with a clarification of where those midday points are, and we can make some decisions about that. But again, this is me just collecting the data and sharing some thoughts on the data, but I don't think I'm ever going to tell you conclusively. Like some of this stuff is a tough call, and you need to be involved with making the final conclusion. I'm not going to tell you this is absolutely what it was. Like, I'm going to show you the data, I'm going to lend an opinion, but you've got to look at it, you've got to listen to other people's opinions, you got to listen to the creator, tugging on your heart, and I know if someone is seeking truth with a pure heart in love, he's going to give them peace, okay, and have peace about that. So that's the update for now. If you have any questions, comment. Also, join this Facebook group to look for those live updates, and hopefully maybe we'll have a few more clarifications here in the next day or two. But shalom, and may Abba bless you as you continually seek out His truths in love with a pure heart.